One hot afternoon, little Jack was walking home from school with his father. In front of an ice cream shop, he stared longingly.
Dad, can I have some ice cream?
He asked cheerfully. His father smiled sadly.
I'm sorry, son. I don't have enough money today.
It's okay, Dad. I can help you work so we can buy ice cream later.
They went home, and Jack helped his father cleaning the yard, delivering goods. A few days later,
This is for my hard-working little helper.
Jack was happy, not just because of the ice cream, but because he could help his father. He learned that happiness is even sweeter when earned together. There was once an aging carpenter named Thomas who had spent his whole life building houses. One day, his employer approached him with a final request.
Thomas, I need you to build one last house.
Thomas sighed. He had already planned his retirement, but reluctantly agreed. He used cheaper materials, rushed the work, and didn't bother with the careful craftsmanship. When the house was finished, it looked decent from the outside, but Thomas knew it wasn't his best work. He handed the keys to his employer, eager to be done.
This house is my gift to you.
Thomas felt his heart sink. If only he had known, he would have built it with care, knowing that in the end, he was always building his own future. Bram was a gambler who lost everything: his home, family, and dignity. Sleeping on the streets, he reflected on his shattered life. One day, an old man gave him bread and said, "Life isn't about winning or losing, but learning from it." Those words sparked hope in him. Bram started working odd jobs, from carrying loads to washing dishes, eventually finding purpose in an orphanage. There, he discovered the meaning of life, helping others. Years later, he built a shelter for those who had lost their way, giving them the second chance he once received. Greg walked to school with a worn-out hat on his head. It was stained and torn in several places. In class, whispers and quiet laughter followed him.
Ha ha! Look at his hat! Doesn't it stink?
Greg stayed silent, lowering his head. Throughout the day, he endured shoves, paper throws, and endless taunts. During recess, the teacher approached him.
Greg, sorry about what happened. But why don't you take off your hat? It's against school rules.
Greg gripped his hat tightly. In a soft voice, he replied,
I can't, miss. This hat was from my dad. Before he passed away last year, I promised to wear it forever.
The class fell silent. No more laughter, only regretful looks from his classmates. This man battled an incurable disease. The doctors and nurses cared for him with love, though they knew the end was near. On his last day, Michael was suddenly full of energy, laughing, sharing stories, and enjoying life. I feel so alive today, he said with a smile. That night, he peacefully fell asleep, his smile still there. After he passed, the nurses found a note under his pillow.
I knew this was my last day. Someone in a dream gave me one day of happiness before I left. Don't be sad, I was ready.
They shivered. Michael had known before they did. It's not the length of life that matters, but how we face its end. Comment love if you agree. Every morning, Jessica always helped an old people cross the street, even though it made her late for school.
Jessica, why are you late again?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
This keeps happening. You need to be more responsible.
Jessica just nodded, never explaining the real reason. She didn't want to use kindness as an excuse. One morning, as Mrs. Clara was walking to school, she saw Jessica helping the old woman cross the street. The sight touched her heart. Later, when Jessica entered the classroom, she braced herself for another scolding. But instead,
I'm so sorry, Jessica. I misjudged you.
It's okay, ma'am. I just wanted to help.
the whole class, realizing the truth, started clapping.